top college football teams of all time that failed to win the national championship. And my initial thought was, well, 2011 LSU is going to be prominently featured on this list. Believe me, it's not a list that you want to be on. Of course, you'd rather your great all-time team win a national championship, but that obviously didn't happen for 2011 LSU. What surprised me was that 2011 LSU was only 24th on this list of the top 25 teams to not win the national championship. And the caveat here, of course, is, and they do write that LSU had maybe the best regular season resume to date and an offense that was better than its reputation. LSU's resume that year was incredible. Of course, they beat Alabama, which won the national championship. They beat Oregon, which won the Rose Bowl and finished fourth. They beat Arkansas, which finished fifth in the country. They also beat West Virginia, which went to the Orange Bowl and won the ACC. And they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game by a combined 89-31. The West Virginia-Georgia game were by a combined 89-31. You had Mo Claiborne, who's a unanimous All-American. You had Tyrann Mathieu, who was a Heisman finalist. You had an amazing team littered with All-Americans that dominated everybody they played until, of course, Bama got a rematch they didn't deserve, and they beat LSU soundly in the national championship game, which is an insane disappointment, as we all know. I mean, it's the most disappointing day in the history of LSU football. It's the most disappointing game in the history of LSU football. It ruined what was, to that point, the greatest season in LSU football history, and certainly the best resume that any team had put together when you look at the ranked teams on the road, top 5, top 10 teams that LSU beat in that season. So LSU's on that list, 24th, and I thought they'd be positioned maybe a little more prominently. But what was really interesting to me is the number one team on the list, because that's another team that actually has a very deep-rooted connection to LSU. The number one team on this list, the best college football teams to never win the national championship, is a team that's only loss came in Baton Rouge. And it was the 1959 Ole Miss Rebels, which, of course, fell to LSU in Tiger Stadium 7-3 on the back of Billy Cannon's famous Halloween run. The write-up reads, when Ole Miss lost to LSU by a 10-7 score in 1961, the Shreveport Times headline read, Tigers upset Ole Miss to maintain four-year jinx. Ole Miss went 38-5-1 from 1958 to 1961, 0-3-1 against LSU, and 38-2 against everyone else. This list is full of teams that lost the one game they couldn't, often to the team they hated losing to the most. It's fitting, then, that a jinxed team leads the way. The write-up reads, how good was this Ole Miss team? The Rebels gave up 21 points all year. 3 touchdowns off either special teams or a turnover. No one scored on a drive of double-digit plays all season. The Rebels also averaged 31.8 points per game, third in the country. My historical S&P rankings rank this team third best of the 20th century. LSU needed multiple red zone stands and maybe the greatest punt return of all time to win 7-3 in Baton Rouge. They write, Ole Miss got its revenge with a 21-0 win in the Sugar Bowl, but the damage was done. Syracuse won the national title, and Johnny Vaught's Rebels were left to secure the best team not to win it all crown. And then they write parenthetically, this being college football, however, they still claim the title because the Sagarin and Dunkel computers retrospectively ranked them number one. AP and UPI voters disagreed. So even though Ole Miss did not win what was a recognized national title back in 1959, they still claim it because some random organization said they were national titles, so they claim it. That's like Ole Miss claiming the 2003 SEC West title, which they do have prominently displayed at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, which is absurd considering that was the day that Eli fell down and LSU went on to win the national title, yet Ole Miss thinks that it won the division. And it's so fittingly Ole Miss to have the one thing that you actually won be the distinction of being the best team to never win at all. But I found that really interesting. The part of this that was the most interesting to me is two things. Number one, that Ole Miss only allowed 21 points all year, and none of them were on offense. Like, no offense scored against Ole Miss all season. And that the S&P rankings has that team as the third best of the 1900s. Think about that. 100 years of football, and that 1959 Ole Miss team, which did not win the national title, the computers rank as the third best of all time, of that 100 years. So, congrats to Ole Miss on being the best team to never win the national championship.